Welcome back to Rock Around the World. Our guests this week, the Bee Gees. We talked to the guys in the middle part of 1975, and that's as they were making their re-emergence back into the rock and roll stream via the Main Course LP. And this conversation takes them back to their early days in Australia.
We were very frustrated in Australia because the influence is coming over from England. And like we were the only...
We wanted to be amongst it, we couldn't be.
Yeah, and at that time we were the only actual British group on Australian records. And no one even thought of making it a sort of gimmick or anything in Australia at that time. And in those days, recording in Australia, I mean, you didn't pay for your own sessions. I mean, the actual recording company paid. So if you wanted strings on your record, I mean, it's like asking for World War III to happen, you know. It's like asking for the Pope to come in and bless it.
Four-track situations, you know. They had eight-track machines at the record company we used to record for in Australia, and they didn't have anyone that knew how to use it.
So they still stuck with the 4-track?
They bought it all over.
No, 2-track. You know. It was 2-track then.
Yeah, but they had an 8-track on the wall, and they didn't even know how to turn on them when we used it.
In fact, most of our earlier stuff was done from reel to reel.
Yeah.
That we always had to do, which we eventually found a little studio, which is chap
found a little studio, yeah,
outside.
back of a butcher shop.
He built it himself, and in fact we recorded, I don't know if you know the record Spicks and Specks, but that record we recorded in the back of his butcher shop.
Yeah.
And it was all converted, and he'd done it out with
what had happened was
tape recorders.
We couldn't find the time to experiment with music or to even to just spend time doing it because we never had enough time to record. Like you get an hour to record something, you get a couple of hours to record something. No one gave you days, you know.
Mm.
And when we found Ozzy Byrne and the studio, you see what Ozzy did for us. He didn't charge us. He said, "I'm going to just record you day and night."
Just that's what we did. Fellas, you know, stop
we
whenever
just
you want
recorded
to,
for about 3 or 4 solid weeks, all-night sessions. He didn't charge us anything, you know. Mm. And he worked with us, and that's how we developed what we had when we got to England.
In fact, he co-produced Bee Gees first. When we got to England, and then after that he left. He wanted to do his own thing and everything. But if it wasn't for him, I think for that extra time and just saying, "Go, man," just stop whenever you feel like it, stop whenever you're hungry, and then go back in and do whatever you want to do. And he just supplied us with reels of tape, and we just kept going and recording.
When you think about it, it's probably a good thing we were in Australia when all the Mersey thing happened, you know. If we'd have been in England at that time, we might have come and gone with the Mersey boom.
Yeah, well, like during the pacemakers sort of thing.
Yeah.
Herman's Hermits and all that.
You know.
Yeah, probably.
But we were on the outside of it, watching it all the time and being influenced by it. But not being in the middle of it might have helped us in the end, you know. Mm. Sort of coming back there later, just after it had happened, like '67, which is coming up to Flower Power, you know. And we sort of stepped in there, made a mark there, but I think I'm glad we weren't there earlier.
The Bee Gees found themselves plagued for just a short amount of time with the idea that they sounded like the Beatles, but that quickly turned around.
Too many bands stay on the one line all the time. If you're a band, you should try and embrace all kinds of music, you know? Get to know different kinds of music and different... and let other songs influence you. And
they stay in like one sort of rut and say, okay, we've got one hit on this rut, let's stay here. And they don't go any further, you know, they just stay. No, so if we do anything else, we're gonna,
a band or an artist, any band or artist who takes the same kind of music usually goes stale eventually.
Or if they find that every single that comes out after every single is the same as the last one, then they're in that rut. And they think that if they do the same as the last single, they're gonna have another success. But you'll find even things that we learned, that little things like even listening to every Beatles single, you'll find that
the spice of the Beatles.
There was not one that was the same as the last. Every one was different. Every single that they brought out,
and
compared to the last one,
there was never the same type of single twice. The same type of song twice.
I mean, what was the difference from Eleanor Rigby to I Feel Fine? But we learned things like that when we first met Brian Epstein and everything when he was alive, and Robert Stigwood who managed us. It was like Brian had his Beatles, Robert wanted his, and we came along at that right time.
But that will never be.
This sort of thing we noticed with the Beatles, that the songs that they were bringing out, each one was different. And like, for instance, you can't compare New York Mining Disaster to Love Somebody. They're two entirely different songs, and you can't compare Massachusetts to Love Somebody. So we thought this was good, because if you bring out the same record that feels the same as the last one,
just because it's successful. I mean,
just because you're successful with the last one, you can't do the same.
Was a 6 to 8 million seller, and everybody wanted us to bring out another Massachusetts straight after it.
Yeah.
Same chords, please do it again. They said.
Yeah, do the same thing again, man.
Why? For another 3 million, and the next record will probably sell 500,000 after that, because everyone's expecting.
Coming up in just a moment, one of a couple of conversations about how the Bee Gees utilized an orchestral sound in their music, and in particular, how it related to the Odessa LP. That as Rock Around the World continues.